Hi everyone, this is Mike here from Ready Steady Strong, and today we're talking about my top 10 favorite exercises. If you haven't already, please think about subscribing. It really helps me support the channel and it makes me know that the content I'm putting out there is useful to someone. My first exercise is going to be a hang power clean. This is a variation on one of the Olympic lifts, and it's a really explosive exercise that can be learned in, fairly short time. It takes a long time to perfect, but most people can get to grips with it pretty quickly. I like it because once you do get the basics and you're comfortable with the main principles of the exercise, it's something that you can load up with a fairly decent weight and move it around explosively without having to worry about being squashed by the weight or losing control of it. It's a really satisfying exercise and it's quite versatile in a number of the things you can change about the way you do it. Obviously, I don't want to kind of include it on the list and kind of make it technically 3 different exercises, but you can change the way you start the exercise, the height you start the exercise from slightly. And if you really wanted to, you can slot in other exercises once you've caught the bar in the top position. So you could then do shoulder presses, push presses, or jerks. But yeah, it's just a good all-round explosive exercise, really valuable and really satisfying to do. Next exercise on my list is a front squat, which is the squat you would do after catching a hang power clean. So it involves you holding the bar in that front rack position and doing a squat from there. This trains a really good range of motion through the lower body, one of our major fundamental movement patterns in the squat. And a lot of people would probably make an argument here for the back squat or a safety bar squat or something like that, because it doesn't require the same mobility requirements as the front squat. And having a weight on your back rather than on your front is probably a little bit less taxing on the kind of upper back strength. So a lot of the time with heavy front squats, what happens is the shelf that you make where the bar sits across your shoulders, that starts to collapse as the weight bears down on you, and it makes it possible that you might drop the bar off your shoulders. But even bearing that in mind, the front squat has always felt more comfortable to me. I don't know whether that's because I'm tall or anything like that. It just helps me stay a bit more upright than a back squat. But I've always really enjoyed the front squat, and I feel like it's a lot more targeted on the quads than a back squat as well. And it's just all-round satisfying movement to have a bar kind of sitting on your chest and bearing down on you, and you've got to maintain a really tall upright position as you do your squats. If you can't hit the front squat position because you don't have the mobility in the wrists, or you just don't find it comfortable having a bar here, then maybe something like a safety bar squat is an alternative for you that's going to hit a similar angle, but is going to be a little bit more comfortable to hold. My third exercise is going to be chin-ups and pull-ups. Personally, I prefer the chin-up. It just feels more comfortable on my shoulders, and it also feels a little bit stronger. But, I kind of group these in with pull-ups. They're very similar variations of the same exercise. Pretty obvious reasons why. Obviously, it's one of our upper back pulling exercises, which is great. And it's also just really feels like a really big achievement to be able to lift your own body weight with these. And it's a really rewarding goal for people to progress themselves from, say, assisted pull-ups and negative pull-ups, then going towards being able to do full unassisted pull-ups, and then being able to add weight later on. It always feels like the kind of exercise that reminds you of a life or death situation where you might be hanging off a cliff and have to pull yourself up from there. So it's really satisfying, and it really kind of makes you feel like you're achieving something in the gym. Next exercise is going to be the bench press. And I'm a little bit undecided about dumbbell versus barbell here. I like doing barbell bench press because it's really stable, really well controlled, and you tend to lift a bit more weight, which is really satisfying. But I've got to say that most of the time I actually prefer a dumbbell bench press because I like the kind of slight freedom of movement you have between the dumbbells and the range of motion, the extra range of motion that you can get at the bottom of the dumbbell bench press, because you don't have the bar touching your chest when you get to the bottom. So I'm a little bit undecided there. I think I'm just slightly edging towards the barbell bench press as my preferred lift. Next is going to be the deadlift. I'm talking about the full deadlift where you pick the bar up from the floor. For a long time, I would have said Romanian deadlift because I like the fact that you're training this hinging movement and you're getting a really good stretch through the hamstrings, and it's kind of testing your hinging range of motion. But what I realized when I started deadlifting again a few years ago is having the confidence to pick up a heavy weight from the floor when it's completely inert and it's completely stationary on the floor. Having that skill of being able to break that inertia and confidently commit to that lift from the very beginning, I think that's really important. And so deadlift just wins out a bit on the Romanian deadlift here as a really useful skill to have when it comes to picking things up from the ground outside in everyday life. Next is going to be a depth jump or a drop jump. This is a plyometric exercise, and I am planning a whole series on plyometrics coming up soon. But these exercises involve stepping off of a high surface like a box or a platform, landing on the ground, and very quickly returning back into a big jump, basically. With these movements, you have variations in how long you spend on the floor. if you spend longer time on the floor, you tend to be able to jump a bit higher. But if you aim to have a very instantaneous kind of bounce off the floor, then it can be like a shallower jump, but a kind of stiffer landing as well. And just across that kind of spectrum of jumps, you can train a lot of different properties for your lower body explosiveness. It doesn't involve any weight, and it's good for things like bone density, where you're getting that impact of landing every time. I've spoken before about how I think plyometrics are a little bit underrated in the gym, and this is a really easy way to start bringing those into your program. And I think just like what I was saying about the deadlift, how it gives you skills for everyday life, I think drop jumps and depth jumps also provide some of that value as well. Next is a single arm row, and this is the way that I do this, is to set yourself up on a bench and give yourself, a good stable base, and then pull the dumbbell towards your hip. I really like these because you build a really strong platform to be able to pull really hard. And it's an exercise where you can get really strong because you've got a nice stable base, as opposed to, say, a bent over row where you're, standing up with a barbell and then you bend over and row from there. I really rate these as well because it's a single arm exercise, and, as a tall guy with long arms, a single arm row gives me a lot more range to be able to reach through to the end of the motion and really stretch through my back. And this means that not only am I getting a really big range of motion, but again, I've also got that really stable base where I can lift a heavy weight. So it's win-win. Next are rotational medicine ball throws. So if you're in a gym with a real solid wall or a medicine ball throwing wall, and you have medicine balls that can be thrown and slammed, then a rotational throw is a really good exercise. There are a lot of variations, and I'll kind of put up some videos of a few of them while I'm talking, but they're really satisfying, and they really train one of the movements that we don't target that often, which is rotation. And as someone that came from a kickboxing background where a lot of my gym training was geared towards improving my performance in kickboxing, being able to train rotation, especially through the upper body, was something that I was really interested in. So it's really satisfying to throw a medicine ball against the wall as hard as you can. It's really good for your upper body speed and explosiveness, and it does have some good applications to a lot of sports. Next is a machine row or a cable pulley row. This is, again, another upper back exercise. I have a lot of back exercises in my program. It was drilled into me when I was very young that as a kickboxer, I needed to do lots of upper back work to prevent injury in my shoulders. And now that I'm a little bit older, I appreciate that maybe it's not as simple as do back exercises and you won't get injured, but it still is something that really kind of stuck with me when I was younger and meant that I now have a lot of back exercises that I really enjoy. So a machine row or a pulley row, they're slightly different. A machine row would have like a chest support, whereas a pulley row might have like foot supports where you stick your feet in against the frame. Again, both of those provide you with a really stable base to do a rowing exercise and a good upper back exercise. And provided these are set up well, you can still get a lot of stretch through your upper back and really round your shoulders as you bring the handle forward. And then you can really squeeze your shoulder blades back together when you pull back. So again, just a really satisfying, heavy exercise, training the upper back. And my last exercise, number 10, I might regret this one later on, but I'm going for the reverse Nordic, which is a quad or kind of knee-based exercise. It involves you getting a really big stretch through your quads and your hips, but it's not the most heavy, it's not the most difficult, but these just feel really good. And I've been through some periods in my life where I've had knee pain or kind of quaddy, tendony knee pain. I had a bike accident once where I really bashed my knee, and my knee used to get really sore after training. And reverse Nordics just feel really good for all of that. It's really good to get that stretch through the front of the thigh and the hip, and it always just makes my knees feel good. And it's always something I come back to if I've got sore, cranky knees. I just come back to that exercise, and it tends to help along with other things as well. You can increase your range of motion with these over time, and you can load them up a little bit as well. It's not always the most stable or the easiest to set up, but it's still a really good exercise, I think. I could have had some other exercises here. Instead of reverse Nordics, I could have had glute ham raises, which are really tough and rewarding, and it's something that's worth working towards. I could have had some shoulder presses. I don't have much pressing on this list. And yeah, Romanian deadlifts were a close miss as well. Maybe kettlebell swings. There are a ton of really good exercises, obviously, but these are the 10 that I would probably focus on most. Or at least they're the 10 that I enjoy the most anyway. That's it for this video though. What are your top 10 exercises, or even your top 5 if you're short for time? Leave those in the comments, and we'll have a chat about what exercises you prefer. If you'd like to learn more about strength training and general gym advice, then make sure you subscribe to this channel and share it with your friends as well. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you on the next video.